right, let's get started. So our two presenters today are Andrew Bull from HID. He's the Global Director of Commercial Authentication. He has over 25 years of experience in cybersecurity, very strong advocate of FIDO and FIDO aligned devices in particular. And then from the Accutive security side, we have Justin Wright, who is one of our senior IAM engineers here. He brings over a decade of experience working for multiple MSSPs and security operations centers with a strong focus on IAM and cryptography. So our agenda for today is going to start off by talking about some of the changes that we're seeing around phishing attacks, how they're becoming more sophisticated with a particular focus on social engineering. Then we're going to get into FIDO, what FIDO is, why it's important, and then we're going to get into some of the different ways to deploy FIDO within your organization, particularly mobile or synced passkeys versus hardware passkeys, commonly referred to as YubiKeys or smart cards. Then, focusing on the hardware aspect, we're going to take a dive into that form factor question. What are the differences between smart cards and USB keys or YubiKeys? And then finally, we'll give you some actionable tips you can take away to start building your own phishing resistant MFA at your organization. And then we'll leave a few minutes for any Q&A at the end. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please just drop them in the chat and we will get to them at that point at the end of the webinar. So I'll hand it over to my colleague, Justin, to kick us off.
Great. Thanks, Tyson, for the introduction. Welcome, everybody. This is Justin from Accutive Security. It's a pleasure to speak with you all today. Let's talk about phishing. So, phishing is a social engineering attack that aims to lure unsuspecting users into giving up their credentials or company data. So the bad actors will pretend to be internal resources at your organization. They'll impersonate Office 365 or Exchange, Salesforce, Okta, your own IT department, etc. So these impersonation emails, they're sent to users urging them to sign in and reset their passwords or to check alerts associated with their accounts. The links in these emails send users to web pages that will look very similar to a legitimate resource web page. But when the users sign in to the page, that'll actually store the passwords for the hackers. So phishing is the #1 attack vector for hackers these days, and it has evolved over the years as threat actors look for new ways to circumvent anti-phishing technologies. So because these phishing technologies or phishing techniques have evolved into complex social engineering attacks, our focus must shift to creating phishing resistant users rather than relying on strong passwords or older multi-factor technologies. So security keys are the best way to fend off credential theft. Security keys are USB keys or smart cards that are loaded with user-specific credentials, and these keys are infinitely harder to compromise than passwords and OTP codes. So Andrew, you're across the pond. What phishing trends are you seeing over in Europe?
Well, I think it's a global marketplace, so we're seeing very much the same as we're seeing in North America. But certainly password harvesting being one of the biggest attacks at the moment. And the reason for that is because it circumvents all the other security protocols that organizations have, because it becomes a valid transaction, a valid login. So yes, these phishing attacks are now definitely looking to steal passwords and using them so that they can log in. I think the Verizon report says 34% up last year on data breaches, and most of these are attributed to bad actors logging in with false credentials or good credentials that they've stolen.
Got it. Thanks for your input there, Andrew. Appreciate that. So how did we get here? So let's talk about a couple success stories involving security keys. So in 2017, Google did some soul searching and realized that the traditional two-factor authentication methods they were using were not safe enough to protect their employee accounts. So Google went ahead and they moved all 85,000 of their employees over to USB security keys. And since that point, they haven't had a single company email account compromised, which is great. Another success story here is Cloudflare. So they had a similar realization to Google, where they figured that they need to up their game in terms of phishing resistance. They moved over to security tokens as well. And their users were actually hit with a massive smishing campaign. So that's SMS phishing, or phishing campaigns done through text messages. So, some of their users actually clicked on the malicious URLs, and um, since they had the security tokens in place, the passwords they gave to the hackers weren't really able, didn't let the hackers fully compromise the accounts, since they didn't have the USB keys needed to complete the authentication attempt. So this kind of shows you the how strong these USB keys are, and even smart cards when you use those. So let me scare you all a little bit and talk about what it looks like when you don't have the proper controls in place. So in 2021, there was an American oil pipeline company called Colonial Pipeline who suffered a major ransomware infection. The ransomware affected all the computers that Colonial uses to manage their pipeline operations. And because of this attack, they had to halt their pipeline operations while they cleaned up the ransomware. And they had the FBI come in and perform forensics and try to help them with the ransom and things like that. So this company supplied 45% of all the oil that is consumed on the East Coast. And when this ransomware infection hit, it caused fuel shortages, high gas prices, and gasoline panic buying in many southeastern states. So this attack remains the largest cybersecurity attack on an oil infrastructure target in U.S. history. So how did this happen? So the hackers were able to obtain a set of credentials that let them into the VPN for Colonial Pipeline's network. They most likely lifted the passwords off the dark web somewhere, and from there they were able to get into the network um, and spread their ransomware without interruption. So if Colonial Pipeline had been using security keys, it's likely that the compromised credentials they had would not have been enough to let them into the network. So when we talk about prevention rates, well, we're breaking them down on this slide by device-based challenges and knowledge-based challenges. Device challenges are MFA methods that rely on secondary device authentication. So this would be like mobile push notification or security keys, which is the topic of our webinar today. Knowledge challenges are methods like receiving a code or approval link via a secondary email address attached to your account. Unfortunately, the knowledge-based challenges can be easily compromised by hackers or intercepted by them, especially if they know what they're doing, right? So you can see here that the device challenges offer way more protection than knowledge-based ones. And specifically in the device challenges, only security keys have a prevention rate of 100% across all kinds of phishing attacks. So Andrew, how are you seeing this in the market?
I think the most interesting thing here is its user convenience. So we can see all those device-based challenges scoring really highly, but the security key is the only one that actually is the easiest to use. And I think adoption is one of the key elements here. So when you think about and sometimes the inconvenience of the SMS code, having to, first of all, initiate the transaction, then open your phone, open your app, get the SMS message, type it in. This isn't user convenient. The prompts, again, not too bad, but again, it's prompting you to open your phone to be able to complete the transaction. Whereas the security key, whether we're talking about the key or the card, is a very simple transaction with the workstation to enable the login. So I think ease of use is a key part of this, but it's great that it points to one of the strongest authenticator. So just going to talk a little bit about the different types of authentication and, for most enterprises, where they are on their journey. I think one of the other interesting things about this journey is that those silos represent the strength of security, not necessarily the impact of cost. I don't think it's any more expensive to implement a phishing resistant authenticator than it is maybe multi-factor authentication. But let's get back and start at the beginning of that journey with passwords. So a lot of organizations have password policies. So whether that's going to be a long string of alphanumeric special keys, updated on a sort of 3-monthly cycle. But the big challenge with passwords today, AI is able to crack most passwords. I say all passwords, but that's probably a bit exaggerating, but most passwords very quickly. So it's weak, but it is still the basis of a lot of authentication, whether it's actually seen as the password you type in or it's released by one of the other form factors. Single sign-on, obviously most people have already moved through that. Single sign-on is not just about using one password to access your network and applications. It's generally also about that access management that chooses which applications are available to an individual. But at the same time, we're still relying on a password to actually access the systems. Multi-factor seems to be that strong step up because it now requires you to be something you know, something you are, something you have. So it can be multiples of different form factors, fingerprint, a PIN number, or a password. And together that seems like a strong authenticator. But in a lot of cases, all those different factors are doing is masking the password to release a password into the system. So somebody who is hacking the system can still actually get to the password and release the password. The risk and conditional access, very much seen in the financial service market, but there are other organizations using it. And this is looking at the difference in terms of location for login, whether you're in the office or you're out of office, the country you may be in, the time of day, keystrokes. And this is building up a risk profile. So when you hit a certain threshold, it will then generate another action. So it will see you as a risk and perhaps prompt for one of those SMS messages. So where most people are coming to talk to us are talking about passwordless or phishing resistant. And yes, there is still a difference between just passwordless and phishing resistant. But this is the journey most people are on to eliminate that vulnerable password. And we're going to talk a little bit about what is the difference. What is a phishing resistant credential? And if we move to the next slide, Tyson, I think we're going to look at FIDO. So what is FIDO, or what does FIDO actually even stand for? So this is fast identification, identity online. And FIDO is actually an alliance. It's an organization of industry leaders, industry bodies from the cybersecurity market who have come together to support a common standard. And that's important because by having a common standard, we know that we can build platforms and services that can support the keys. I see we name check a competitor, YubiKey, on there. They have obviously been one of the stalwarts of promoting FIDO with their USB keys. One of several manufacturers of keys, of course, but a lot of people just recognize that brand name now. The other thing about the keys, what's so important about them, is the cryptography that's being used. So whilst you could still argue you have a password inside the passkey, it is protected by cryptography, which means that we've got two elements to this. We've got the cloud service you're logging into, and obviously your own passkey. And it's really difficult to hack. The passkey, the cryptography is changing continuously, so being able to intercept and replay does not exist. This is why we see this as the gold standard and call it a true phishing resistant credential. Because even if they try to get your password, it will not be the same the next time they try and play it. Just talking about the different form factors, and I know I have to speed up a little bit here, is obviously a passkey, and the passkey is actually the form factor of FIDO. So passkeys are the actual passwords, you could say, and we're going to store them on different devices. Mobile devices are one of the form factors, but they're not as secure as the device-bound form factors of the actual keys or cards. So when you're looking at a mobile device, obviously we all know that they've got different plugins in them. They've got their SIM cards, they've got memory cards. So in that way, a passkey could actually be mobile in itself and could be moved between devices, as opposed to a bound passkey that is part of the hardware and cannot be removed. Again, important to perhaps enterprises who obviously have people leaving the organization and want to know that they can cancel those passkeys, recover them. A bit hard to do if somebody's walked away with their mobile phone. And also we see another challenge with mobile devices. Probably only 20% of an enterprise will have a mobile provided by the organization, which means that we're putting our credentials, our cryptography onto people's personal devices. And I think that can throw up a whole host of other questions. So let's just look at, again, go back to that hardware slide. So keys and cards. Keys being the USB key that plugs into the side of your laptop or computer. But actually, quite a few of these can be wireless as well. Because they're wireless, that means you can just tap them onto a device to log in as well, in the same way that a card is used as a tap to log in. The advantage of the card is in the enterprise environment. Most employees are already carrying cards. They're using them daily to access the building. HID, the global largest leader of access control credentials, adding the FIDO passkey to the card. So now you can use that card to open the door or to open your workstation. And it's a single component that the employee needs to carry. So making it very effective and very user-friendly and very intuitive. And I think this is one of the important things when we look at this strong authentication, is that it's easy to use, because it's about the users adopting the standards and adopting the use cases. Keys have their place, and I think in the marketplace, we would always see a blend of technologies where some traveling employees may prefer to use a key, but the bulk of the employee base who are already using cards to access the building would find the single component of a card the easiest form of FIDO to use.
All right, thanks, Andrew. This is Justin again. We spoke about FIDO security keys and the phishing-resistant security that they offer, but how do you actually build an environment that successfully leverages the phishing-resistant MFA we've been talking up this whole time? So number one, you want to identify the needs of your organization. Ask yourselves, what security, business, and compliance needs must your company adhere to? Next, take a look at your identity and access management framework. What do you have in place now, and what are you missing? Assess and improve your internal processes by applying a maturity model. This will help you move your current security posture to a more mature and efficient state. Next, perform a gap analysis. Find out which security solutions you have and which solutions you have yet to implement. Review FIDO-aligned options. Do your research and decide which FIDO products are the best fit for the users in your organization. Get your priorities straight. Decide which solutions you need to implement as soon as possible to make the company safe from threat actors and put them towards the top of your list. Next, roll out your MFA technology framework. Use your priorities list to tackle the necessary items first. And lastly, educate your users. This is a very important point here. So user education will ensure that your security posture is well-rounded. Since users are the main targets of social engineering attacks, it's very important that they know how to spot potential attacks, and even more important that they know what to do if they find that their accounts have been compromised.
Okay, great.
Thanks
Thank
very
you,
much,
Justin.
Justin. So I think just handing over to Tyson now to manage any questions that we may have in the chat.
Okay, I'm seeing a question here. And this is a question for you, Andrew. What is the difference between YubiKeys and HID smart cards and USB keys? Do they have the same security standards?
Yes. So this is the whole point about FIDO. FIDO is a standard. Actually, in terms of when we actually, as the industry making our devices, we actually have to submit them to the FIDO Alliance to be certified. So that way, you know that the FIDO credentials can all be used. So it's not impossible to mix and match and have YubiKeys, HID cards, HID keys, all in the same environment. And in fact, we do have customers that we use some of our management software to manage the use for them. So FIDO as a standard does mean we have a truly interoperable type of system here.
Okay, great. I see another question I've received, which is, how do smart cards and USB keys or YubiKeys integrate with existing IAM platforms and zero trust architectures?
Nice question. Easily. So within the Microsoft environment, Microsoft is already set up and ready as one of the principal partners to actually run FIDO. So really, it is as simple as switching on and using it. It is the Microsoft world is already enabled fully for FIDO. We actually already see other organizations like Google being one of the core ones, but Microsoft themselves telling you that in order to log into their cloud platforms, you will now be using only passkeys. Yeah, that is the level of push we've got out there. And most people today will know that many websites they go to, even whether it's as simple as using their eBay account, will be asking them now if they want to use passkeys. So the adoption is accelerating really quick, and it's very easy to use because most of the platforms and infrastructure are already now enabled to use passkeys.
Okay, great. Just one final question here. What are some of the common implementation challenges organizations should expect when rolling out smart cards versus USB keys? Is there a difference in terms of the implementation, I guess they're asking here?
Justin, would you like to take that one?
Sure. Sorry, can you repeat the question, Tyson?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about the different implementation challenges for smart cards versus USB keys. Is it the same? Is it more challenging to implement one versus the other?
No, I mean, the only difference I would say for between the two is that when you're working with smart cards, you have a bit more options in terms of what they can do. So the USB keys, for example, you can't really use them for physical access. Um, so the smart cards will be better suited for that. In terms of actual uh, issues with getting these things sorted, I mean, the deployment time is really not that high for these, getting the cards and the keys set up for your users. It's usually pretty quick. I don't see a difference between the two other than, just the options for the smart cards being more open, I would say.
Okay. We do have another one that just came through. FIDO is read through NFC exclusively, thus making both contact and contactless options. Is that correct? It's maybe a question for you, Andrew.
That's a good one. So HID make dual interface cards, which are contact cards and contactless cards. Having said that, I've seen most people who are adopting the FIDO standard and moving ahead with passkeys go for contactless readers. There's no reason you couldn't choose to actually buy one of our contact cards and use FIDO through a contact card. But I say my experience to date has been most of our client base has chosen to go with a pure contactless reader using that NFC read, either as a desktop reader or a reader that's already built into the laptop.
Okay, awesome. I think that's all the questions we have here, and we're right at time. So as a special, I guess, offer, so to speak, for the attendees today, if you simply scan this QR code and submit the form, we are offering a complimentary phishing resistant assessment to all the attendees today. So simply scan that and then just submit the form, add in a comment, phishing resistant assessment, and we will set you up with either Justin or one of our other IM engineers to get that assessment for you. All right, I think that's everything. Thank you very much for attending today, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.